Hello, my name is Botha. I'm an audio engineer and I've been working now for 11 years. I graduated in 2007 from the Academy of Sound Engineering in Johannesburg and started working beginning of 2008 in the dubbing bay, which wasn't very exciting, but it was a good way for me to just learn signal flow and using different types of machines, because basically what it is taking old mediums such as vinyl, DATs, and digitizing it. I also then had to do music searches for commercials using a huge library of CDs. I then moved to recording Foley. And what Foley is basically any mechanical sound that you hear in productions. So for example, footsteps, cloth movement, door handles, anything like that. Any mechanical sound from two elements touching each other is basically Foley. And I then moved from there to ADR recording, which is when all the audio from set has been compiled in the edit, and once it's been cleaned up, anything that still sounds broken or dirty needs to be replaced by ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. So that's when the actor comes in and we have to redo the lines to picture. I then started dialogue editing and then moved to final mix, which includes TV, cinema, and now Dolby Atmos mixing. So that's kind of the journey. So the importance of sound editing in post-production. If you're watching a film, you probably don't even realize the amount of sound that has been added. So we just assume that everything we're hearing on the picture has been recorded with the dialogue. For example, the footsteps, the clothing, the door handles, the car passes. But that's not the case. All we're actually getting from set is the dialogue. Everything else we put in. And what makes it so tricky is as soon as one of those things feels out of place, it pulls you out of the story. So it's crucial when you're doing Foley as well as sound effects tracking that the stuff that you are putting in to make it feel real doesn't jar with the picture. Otherwise, it pulls the viewer out of the viewing experience, which is obviously not what we want. So sound in that way is quite technical, but on the other hand, it's also very fun when you're designing sounds for things that don't exist. Sci-fi sounds and spaceships and all that kind of thing. So it's very rewarding at the same time. So the process of actually going through a film, for example, would be everything gets recorded on set and everything gets sent to the editor. They then sync up all the takes of picture that they want along with the corresponding audio, and it gets put into a timeline which then gets exported and sent to the sound guys. Then what we'll do is we'll clean up and level out all the dialogue and try and get it to sound as though it was recorded all in one day, in one place, so that it's smooth and continuous. But obviously, that's in a perfect world. So any time that we can't actually get that right, we then have to create notes of ADR. And then once the dialogue edit is done, we get all the actors in and we'll watch the scenes a couple of times and we'll cue up each line with wipes or beeps, however they're comfortable. And we'll record every single line of dialogue that needs to be done, edit it afterwards, put it back into the timeline, add reverb or any sounds to make it feel like it's recorded on the day. And if it's done well, you shouldn't be able to tell. So that's the process with that. While the dialogue editors are happening, the Foley is being recorded. So all the footsteps, as I say, anything like that. And then sound effects editing is happening. So any sound design, cars, planes, and then the music is being composed. So once you put all those elements together, you get the soundtrack that you're used to hearing on most films. And a lot of work goes into it. And it can be tedious at times, but it's rewarding when it comes together. A couple of the reasons why we isolate everything so much is, especially when it comes to things with the sound recorded on set, is if you have any of the effects mixed along with the dialogue, for example, you can't separate the two sounds. So if you want to raise the footsteps, you raise the dialogue, and the inverse applies. So if for any reason in the final mix, if the director says, okay, can you bring out the voice and put a cool effect on the footsteps? You wouldn't be able to because they're on the same track. So by isolating every single sound that we can, we just have more flexibility in the mix to do whatever we feel works creatively. Another benefit of this is when you create an M&E track, which is a music and effects track, you have no missing effects when you remove the dialogue. So if you forget to put, or if you don't put footsteps in because there's footsteps on the dialogue in a certain scene, when you remove that dialogue, those footsteps disappear. So when they dub it into a different language, you basically send them a M&E track and they put the foreign language over that, and it should be 100% there. So any sound effects that are missing because they're on your dialogue track obviously are no longer in your mix with the foreign language version. Okay, a few sound editing rules and tips. Generally they are quite technical, but as a general rule of thumb, I would say simple things such as recording your audio at the same frame rate as your picture, to sync up your camera with your sound recorder on set, as well as keeping all the metadata or information associated with that audio intact. Because later down the line, once it's gone through an editor and the sound editing process, if we are in the final mix and we want to change a take of dialogue, for example, if you don't know where that audio comes from, the chances of you finding it in the sea of sound from set is very slim. It's also a good idea to take criticism. Everyone makes mistakes, but you need to take it gracefully, I would say, as there's lots to learn. You need to learn from your mistakes because you generally are not going to get too many second chances. Be a nice person. This industry is small, so if you alienate a handful of people, your reputation might get a bit tainted, which you never want. So just be a nice person, be open to suggestions, and we're all trying to better the industry. So I would say, yeah, we're all just here to kind of learn from each other. Lastly, when it comes to software that you can use, there's a couple of free packages, one of them being Pro Tools First, another is Audacity. The problem with these is that you can't integrate picture. So it's a good way just to practice your editing audio skills, but it makes sense if you want to do post-production to try and get involved with the picture if you can. So the next step up would be Logic Pro or Adobe Audition. They allow you to integrate picture. For a small fee, you could get either of those. And then it kind of gets exponentially more expensive based on the flexibility and the power of the programs that you can buy. So it's always nice to try and get involved in a place that already has those systems set up for you to practice on. But do what you can, and yeah, hopefully you'll be in the industry soon.